First, I wanted to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's great to see so many people out here interested in this important position. Thanks to Heather Duncan, the Circuit Court Clerk, who made this venue available, and to Daniel, the President of the Young Republicans, for putting this event together. My name is Will Lockhart. I'm an attorney here in Manchester. I practice at Birch and Lockhart. I'm also a member of the Young Republicans in the role of state liaison and the president of the Coffee County Bar Association. Channel 6 is gracious enough to record this event tonight, so the link will be available. They're also going to show it, I believe, on LightTube and on their own channel as well. The format tonight is pretty straightforward. It's going to be a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate. Then there will be 5 questions. I will ask the questions. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond, and we'll move on through there. We're going to alternate the order so everyone's not going first every time or last every time. Daniel's going to be the timekeeper and hold up a card when we have 30 seconds left, and then the red when you're supposed to stop talking. So thank everyone again for coming. If you're here to support a candidate, that's great. If you're undecided, that's even better. That's why this forum is here. If you are here supporting a candidate, feel free to clap or cheer after their opening statement and closing statement. But if you can hold any applause or anything during the questions so we can move along, I would appreciate it. All the candidates here today are vying to be elected General Sessions Judge Part 1. All the candidates are running on the Republican ticket. A Democrat has not qualified, and so the winner of the primary will be the de facto winner. The county commission has taken steps to essentially put forward this winner in the March 3rd primary, appoint them early, and then they will take their actual official seat in September, finish out the 2-year term of the late Judge Tim Brock, and then they will be back up for re-election for a full 8-year term in 2022. Judge Ledsinger, Jerry Ledsinger, is the other General Sessions judge. He is the Part 2 General Sessions judge. General Sessions jurisdiction has 3 large areas: criminal, civil, and juvenile. The civil includes civil suits under $25,000, collections, detainers, divorces, orders of protection. Juvenile includes dependent and neglect cases, unruly and delinquent children, and child support. And criminal cases, the judges can handle misdemeanors or they can handle preliminary hearings on felonies. And I'm going to run through real quick some statistics that Heather provided me with. In 2019, there were 645 delinquent and unruly cases, 325 child support cases, and 238 dependency and neglect cases filed. Criminal cases, there were 4,209. Civil cases, there were 3,731, just over 200 orders of protection, 7,000 traffic tickets, and 290 Bonnaroo cases. So as you can see, this is a very large docket with lots of various areas of the law that these candidates will deal with. So without further ado, I will, and we used a very sophisticated system of drawing straws essentially. And so whoever drew first can come up and start with their 2-minute opening.
Good evening. This microphone does not project. It's for the camera. I'm going to try to project my voice as much as possible tonight, but my voice is leaving me somewhat. This is a different experience for me. I speak in public every single day, but not with this view. My back is always to the audience. It's nice to actually see some faces for a change. And thank you for coming here tonight. I think this is what makes a small community special, is turnout for events like this. So I appreciate the attendance. A little bit about myself. I was raised in Tullahoma from 5th grade on. I went to Tullahoma High School, graduated Tullahoma. My mom and dad still reside in Tullahoma. My dad's a lifelong resident, went to Tullahoma schools. I'm somewhat of a byproduct. I lived in Manchester for approximately 18 years with my wife, Lori. She's here somewhere. My son, Blake, and my daughter, Lauren, is 26 and is now living in Los Angeles. So, I work in law practice with my brother-in-law, Brent Keaton. It's a family-owned business. We came here approximately 13 years ago, placed a shingle on the front door and said, this is what we're going to try to do. In hindsight, don't know if that was the smartest decision, but it worked out. Thanks again to a small community like this. We've had a lot of support, a lot of family support. Couldn't have done it without my brother-in-law. And we practice, we're a general practice. It's a small town. We do a little bit of everything. My practice is mainly focused on domestic relations law, family law. I do many, many mediations a year, which allows me to see and view a lot of facts from a lot of cases in a lot of different situations. I look forward to speaking to you further tonight. If you haven't already made your mind up on who you're voting for, I would truly appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Stacy Lynch, and I, like Greg, have also lost my voice. So I am speaking as loudly as I can. I hope that you can hear me. First, I want to say thank you very much to the Coffee County Young Republicans for having the wonderful idea of getting us all together and having this forum, and also to the Bar Association, which I have a special place in my heart for. I was a former president of the Bar Association, and love that they have also decided to get us all together and have an opportunity to speak to you all about this very important position for General Sessions Judge, and give you a little bit of information about it, and hopefully have a chance to learn a little bit more about us each as candidates, as well as the position of the General Sessions Judge. I was raised in Tullahoma, moved here when I was 13 months old. One of those who, my dad is an engineer and came to Tullahoma from California to work out at the base, pretty much like a lot of other people here in Coffee County. My parents are Bob and Sandy Lindeman. I got the best of both worlds, is what I say. I got my dad's engineering side and my mom's very outgoing, and her faith and support of the community. And she taught me early on how important it was to be involved in the community. And that's something my sister and I learned really early on. My sister Dawn Asbell now, she is also one who has just gone out and done everything she can for her community as well. And that's something that that we continue to do. I graduated from Tullahoma High School, and graduated from Tullahoma High School in 1990, went to Vanderbilt University and graduated from there. Decided that I wanted to work in the business world, and I was in human resources in the corporate world. Graduated from, decided I instead of teaching people about the law, I would actually go to law school. So I went to Nashville School of Law while I worked full-time and started my family. And I worked with Vanessa Jackson, Jim Lane, and Don Ray. I have a general practice. I work with criminal, civil, as well as juvenile law. I was named the magistrate of the juvenile court in July of 2018. And at that time, I preside over the Safe Baby Court and the Family Treatment Courts. Very important jobs here in Coffee County, and actually preside over some juvenile court cases. So I'm the only candidate here today that can say that I've worked in all of the different practices, in general sessions, criminal, civil, as well as juvenile, and I've actually sat on the bench and decided cases. So that's why I'm asking for your vote on March 3rd for General Sessions Judge, and I look forward to telling you more about myself and as well as the court. So thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, folks. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Jeff Stockwell. I'm a candidate for General Sessions Judge. The reason that we have campaigns is so folks like you can see the difference between the different candidates. And I know all these people. I've worked with all these people. They're all fine people. I have a great deal of respect for every one of them. But there are differences. In my campaign, I am not taking a dime from anyone. This is a self-funded campaign. If a judge is out for lunch and one of you fine folks decides to buy him a hamburger, that's a judicial ethics violation. Now, during a campaign, it's perfectly okay to give people money. And that's the way the rules are set up. And that does not make sense to me. So I'm not accepting money from anyone. I am self-funding my campaign. Experience. Experience is probably the most important thing for this job, and I think we probably will all agree on that. I don't know, but I think experience is key. I graduated from the University of Denver College of Law as a Chancellor Scholar, which is a very prestigious scholarship, which I'm quite proud of. During law school, I worked for the Colorado State Public Defender's Office, also a very prestigious position for a law student, and I went on to work for them after law school. After graduation, I was in private practice in Denver, Colorado, and then my wife and I chose to move to Tennessee, where I worked with Campbell Smoot. Campbell and I tried cases ranging from murder to public intoxication. I've worked with judges, other lawyers, and police officials daily. Experience does count. And while most attorneys spend the largest part of their career working from their offices, I have spent mine in courtrooms. I've handled thousands of individual cases. I would be willing to bet that I have more trial experience than any of my opponents, and probably more than all of them put together. In my opinion, a competent judge gets as much information as possible, applies any relevant law, and most importantly, considers the impact of their decision before they make it. Thank you for listening, folks. Appreciate it.
Good evening, everybody. And as part of the Young Republicans putting this on, I wanted to say what a great week it's been to be a Republican, and very proud of what's happened in the past week. And my name's Jason Husky. I've grown up here in Manchester. My parents are from Tullahoma. We've lived our whole lives in Coffee County. My father's Robert Husky. He's been practicing here for, I believe, about 50 years. My mother was Sharon Turnbow in Tullahoma and raised there, and she passed in 2011. I'm married. My wife is Christy Davis Husky, and she is somewhere in this room. And we have two beautiful children of 4 and 6 who are hopefully home getting ready for bed at this point. I began actually working in a law office at about 13 years old, doing odds and ends, and did more as I got older. I graduated from MTSU with a bachelor's in criminal justice, minor in psychology, and emphasis in political science. And then after a short break, I went to Nashville School of Law and graduated in 2006, actually with Greg. Well, Greg and I were in the same class, and have been practicing as an attorney here ever since. I had a lot I was going to discuss about as far as the breakdown of the job, and Will thoughtfully went through some of that for you. But the experience is key in this. And as Jess pointed out, Jess has probably more straight experience in time than any of us. But Jess we have focuses in criminal justice and criminal law, which is about 25% to 30%, depending on how you slice it, of what comes through General Sessions Court. It is a wide-ranging court. It covers every facet that people have to deal with in life. Everything from traffic violations, family law, orders of protection. Then you get into juvenile cases, which are a very important part, but actually make up a very small part of the time. And I'll go ahead and, he just had my red flag, so I'm going to go sit down.
All right, we'll start with the question section. We're going to go in a little different order for fairness. Stacy will answer this question first, followed by Jess, Jason, and then Greg. This first question involves the administration of the courts. Both General Sessions judges have jurisdiction over juvenile, criminal, and civil equally. However, in the past, the caseloads have been divided between the judges of Part 1 and Part 2 by subject matter. Do you plan to continue this if elected, or do you have a suggestion for a different division of the caseload between the two General Sessions judges? And if so, would you please explain why?
Thank you for that question, Will. First of all, I'd like to say that, we just lost with Judge Brock. We lost our longest tenured judge passing. Had been here for 30 years, and we now are looking at Judge Ledsinger, who has been here for quite some time himself, and he is our senior judge. And I would not presume to say that I know exactly what needs to happen as far as what the caseload should be. My first thought would be I'd walk in and I'd say, look, tell me what we need to do. Let's assess the situation. I'm here to work as a team member. We have an amazing General Sessions judge right now. He would be the senior judge. He would be the one that I'd look at and say, tell me what our caseload looks like. Tell me what I can do to help fit into this. Tell me what my role needs to be. We also have 2 circuit judges. The 4 of them worked together as a team, and that's what needs to continue to happen. The jurisdiction for General Sessions is juvenile, criminal, and civil. It is not Part 1 handles juvenile court and Part 2 handles civil court. And that's what it needs to happen. You need to assess the situation, see what everyone's strengths are, and see where everyone needs to fit. Look at the caseload, see what the efficiency of the court is. Talk to the DAs, talk to the public defenders, talk to law enforcement, talk to the clerks, talk to the Bar Association. Say, how can we make the efficiency of the calendar work for everyone? That's what I would do, and I would see how my skills fit into that and be a part of the team. Thank you.
As Mr. Husky said, he is correct. Most of my experience is as a criminal trial lawyer. And I agree with absolutely everything Ms. Lynch said. Judge Ledsinger is a fine man. Judge Ledsinger has been, for the last several years, been handling all of the criminal docket, is my understanding. And I think that he might be a little tired of that. I don't assume or presume to speak for Judge Ledsinger, but the first thing that I would want to do is talk with him. He is the senior judge. I respect him. He's my friend. And discuss how he wants to break things out, whatever is convenient for him. And for example, since he has taken all of the criminal cases for the last several years, if he wanted me to take all of the criminal cases, I have no problem with that. During my time with the Public Defender's Office, I was also assigned to juvenile court. So I have some juvenile court experience. Trials or court is about resolving disputes. That's what happens in a courtroom. And so you want folks that have experience and wisdom and time, that have seen the things that happen in a courtroom, can use the law to guide them on which direction they need to go and make a decision. But I understand that the decisions that are made from the bench affect everyone, and they affect all the parties, and they affect folks like you, whether you want to believe it or not. Thank you. Just got red carded.
In short answer, and I think Stacy touched on it, he touched on it as well, I think anybody's going to try to work around what Judge Ledsinger, his preferences are. He's earned it. He's earned the right to have that privilege to decide. One thing I would particularly like to see, our Sessions Court actually has original jurisdiction to hear divorces. And as a general unwritten rule, I know they have tended to avoid that. And that is something I would like to see happen, and have that encouraged, to have divorces more flow through Sessions to take some of the load off Chancery Court and Circuit. But as a general rule, beyond wanting to bring that in and more into focus, I would tend to defer to whatever Judge Ledsinger was most comfortable with. And as I got into a little before, I've practiced in all aspects of it. I'm just as well and comfortable doing whichever aspects he would rather me take. And this could be reevaluated then in 2 years if we have a new judge in that position.
I think we just got to do what works, what makes sense. Jess referenced Campbell Smoot, who passed several years ago. I don't know anybody that ever met Campbell that didn't like him. I think that's what we're missing in the court today. We used to have kind of an old guard. We've had change. We've had a new district attorney. We've had new public defender. We've got judges. They're not new, but this is going to be a new position. And I think that's a key component that nobody's spoken about. We've got a district attorney that is crucial in this process. We've got a public defender that's crucial in this process. And we've got to have all of those parts working together instead of against each other for judicial economy. As well, moving divorces to this court, we're very unique in this district because we have 2 chancellors. That's very unusual for a county of our size. A state's looking at redistricting. We don't want to take anything from a caseload in our courts upstairs that may potentially impact how this county can be serviced in the future. If those cases are taken away, we're not going to have the access to the courts that we have now. We will handle cases in juvenile court and unmarried parents. I think that's where they can be. They can be in any court, but I think that's the appropriate forum.
Greg and Jason both hit on some points that is a part of the next question, so we'll be able to elaborate on that. Civil divorce jurisdiction was added to the General Sessions Court by statute or by private act many years ago, but like the candidates have said, that's not used very much. I'd like them to answer why do they think that is, and if those divorce cases did start being filed in front of them, why they would be a good person to resolve custody issues and divisions of assets of the citizens of Coffee County.
Well, again, folks, we're talking about differences. And with all respect to Mr. Husky, I disagree. I happen to agree with Mr. Perry. We have 2 chancellors in this district. Caseload allocation is very important because Coffee County is a standalone jurisdiction. We've had, there was a huge push to redistrict us many years ago, not that many, I believe 4 or 5 years ago. And one of the maps had the judicial district running all the way to the Kentucky border, which would be crazy. People running back and forth, and so I think we need to protect that. I am not a huge fan of having divorces heard in Sessions Court. I believe that it is possible, and certainly I have done divorces. It has been a very long time. I will say that it has been a very long time since I have practiced in that arena. But I believe that we have, the way it's working now is important to continue to keep our caseloads so we do not fall victim to the redistricting problem that is apparently there's discussion about it resurfacing again. And Coffee County has been a single county jurisdiction for a very long time. I think it needs to continue to be that way. I'm fixing to get a red card, aren't I? Bingo. Okay.
I fully support keeping Coffee County as a single county district. Unfortunately, there is just not a shortage of domestic issues that have to be resolved and divorces to deal with. There is more than enough from that standpoint to go around. As a practical matter, the Sessions Court judge actually has an increase in pay because they have agreed to hear divorces. And I think it would be completely appropriate for them to be taking advantage of that and actually helping any they can to divide the load up.
I think I've already touched on it somewhat. Obviously, I think nobody can get paid enough to hear divorces. That's what I do. That would be my wheelhouse. I would love to do that. I do 120 mediations a year, probably 50 to 60 divorces a year. For comfort, that would be what I would enjoy doing because that's where my experience is and my niche. But for the county, I don't think that is the right solution. For the county, the structure that we have, it needs to stay that way. We don't need to give the state a reason to take things away from the county that benefit the citizens. Again, unmarried parents, those custody cases would be heard in juvenile court. As far as custody matters, they need to remain, divorce matters need to remain where they are.
I agree 100% with what Mr. Perry and was stating, as well as Mr. Stockwell. The juvenile cases are already dealt with. The unmarried parents, the judge is going to have to decide whether or not what the correct custody arrangements, what's in the best interest of the child for unmarried parents. Not to mention, whenever there is an allegation of dependency and neglect that is made in a divorce petition, that automatically goes down to juvenile court as well. So that has to be decided by a general sessions judge, and I am prepared to do that. That is something I have done repeatedly in my private practice. Those are arguments that I've made, that I've advocated for my client. I certainly have the experience and the qualifications to make those decisions. I've actually sat on the bench for the last year and a half, and I've heard those cases. I actually presided over those hearings, so I've already done that. So I am prepared to do that and to step into that role immediately. And let's talk a little bit about the caseload that the General Sessions already has, because it's not just the 238 cases of DNA, and those are just new petitions. You also have to add the 700 to 800 cases of the existing filings. So the caseload's already big enough for our two General Sessions judges, 1,600 cases a year that affect our families in Coffee County. That's just in juvenile court. So to add the everyday filings for domestic not only takes away from the civil, from the circuit court judges, but it adds to a caseload that's already overwhelmed for General Sessions. So I would be against that. Thank you.
This question is going to be in the criminal jurisdiction realm. Misdemeanor offenses for which you will have jurisdiction carry a punishment of up to 11 months and 29 days in jail. However, as judge, you will have great discretion in imposing sentences. What do you see as the main basis for punishment that you would use? Deterrence for future actions by the offender or by others, retribution or punishment for the past action that they have committed, or rehabilitation of the offender?
In one sense, that's an easy answer because there is not a correct answer for that. Everything is case by case. Different facts, different situations. There is not a one-size-fits-all approach that deals with this. Some people come in, particularly deal with dependency and neglect, or not, excuse me, I'm sorry, with the younger people, whether they're in on delinquency or we're dealing with 18, 20-year-olds, some of them need a good swift kick in the butt. Some of them need to be scared. Some of them need to be taken off the streets. There is no one way to look at that. That's part of being a judge, is you have to look at every individual thing that comes before you and evaluate it and deal with it appropriately, not a one-size-fits-all.
Probably the most difficult question that was asked tonight, because there are many, many options. One of the considerations is we built a jail a few years ago. Jail's at maximum capacity most of the time. We have to look at alternatives. It costs $36 a day to house an inmate. You add that up over the year, that's a significant amount of money. If we have programs that keep the community safe, as well as find treatment or deter them from action in the future, I think we need to look into those. I have been a charter member of the Drug Court Board here for 11 years. I do that, serve that in a volunteer capacity. We have an excellent treatment program. We can only do so much with the money that we have. But we have other resources that we need to look into. Ankle monitors. We need to work with our probation officers. They have services as well. We don't need to handcuff ourselves with services that we only have one option. We've got option through everyone that we're working through. It's going to take the buy-in from our public defender, from our district attorney, our probation officers, our drug courts, and our sheriff. And I think we need to come together with a plan. I'd rather spend the money keeping somebody from coming back to jail if there's not a threat of harm to society.
Obviously, I am quite the advocate for the recovery courts. Since I preside over the Safe Baby Court and the Family Treatment Courts, I think they're extremely important in all aspects, even our civil courts, because you're talking about putting people to in treatment and recovery is such an effect on our economy. It puts people back to work. It puts people, makes accidents decrease, it is has such an economic impact on everything. So I think it's a combination of all three of those. Obviously, punishment is important because it provides structure. That's very important, especially with our youth. Structure deterrence is extremely important early on. Excuse me, but rehabilitation is something we have to make sure that we don't have repeat offenders, and just stick someone in jail and not fix the problem is not going to do that. So I think it's a combination, but when you're talking about the economic impact and the fact that we can take $1 invested in treatment and that reduces the crime-related cost by $7. Add health care into that, and it's 12 to 1. Increase workplace productivity. It's extremely important. So I would be for rehabilitation as well, because I think it does deter people for future crimes. So thank you.
Well, being a public defender for most of my career, I'm going to add one that wasn't in there when you talk about recidivism. And a lot of the folks that we deal with here in this county are just, it's over and over and over and over. And so those folks obviously need to be dealt with in a different way than first-time offenders or young people. So I have to second absolutely everything that Mr. Perry said and the other folks said. That really, it's important that we talk about probation and that all of these offices work together. I have an excellent working relationship with General Northcutt, and we can work together to solve some problems if we can see them. I know the probation staff very well. We can all get together and pull our heads together and decide, when we talk about sentencing, really try to figure out what's best in the situation. And I'm going to briefly, because I'm getting a yellow card, give you an example. It's a very, very different thing. I had a client at one point in time that literally had 25 or 30 convictions for shoplifting. And she came in for, guess what, shoplifting. And she was quite upset that the district attorney, the only thing that they would offer her was the maximum penalty that they could give her. And I tried to make her understand that if it were something else, if she had come in with driving on revoked, but at that point in a person's criminal history and in their career as a criminal, there's nothing that you can do except protect the public from them for as long as possible. And I have no problem doing that when necessary. Thank you.
This question is in the juvenile court realm and a little bit of the administration of the courts. The juvenile court magistrate position was recently created, which Stacy's mentioned. She has been in that position for about a year now. If you are elected to be the General Sessions Judge, you will have the power to choose whether that position continues or if you will hear those cases. First, it's a two-part question. First, do you intend to continue that magistrate program? And if so, how do you intend on going about filling that position as magistrate?
Well, we didn't know the questions before we got here, so I'm going to be the first to answer a very difficult question. The magistrate position is an important position. Ms. Lynch has done a good job in doing that. The magistrate, hard word to say, position is a part-time position. It's Monday afternoons, 2 to 4 hours, depending on the caseload, and we have 2 to 3 graduations a year. We graduate 15 to 20 people from the Safe Baby and Family Treatment Court a year. The position was started due to conflicts. It's hard for somebody going through treatment to come in and open up to a judge, especially ex parte without an attorney, and tell that judge things they're doing for fear of retribution. So that's what the position's for. The position makes recommendations to the judge, and the judge makes the rulings. I am in favor of the position. I would be in favor if I was fortunate enough to win for Ms. Lynch to remain for continuity purposes. The only reason I would eliminate the position would be is if we don't have enough money for treatment. It's a position that's about $35,000 a year that's coming out of treatment funds. If it comes down to having to choose that magistrate position versus providing services to keep people out of jail and to help families, I would make that hard decision. But for our family treatment courts, I'm in favor of it as long as we can afford it.
Obviously, I have a very unique perspective on the magistrate position since I've served in that role for the last year and a half. First, let me say the role of the magistrate is a lot more than just 2 to 4 hours on a Monday afternoon. The role of the magistrate is quite a lot more than that. It is every day of the week, it is something that I'm involved in where I'm a part of a team, and it's the team for the Family Treatment Court and the team for the Safe Baby Court. I take an active role in the staffing of these individuals' cases, and I know everything that happens in their treatment. I know everything that happens in their families. I know everything that happens in their lives, in their families. I actually developed the policies and procedures for the Family Treatment Court and for the Safe Baby Court. It is an ongoing process because this is something that is new for Coffee County. We also have an additional program that's coming. We're always looking at new things that need to happen for Coffee County. And the magistrate is the team leader for these courts. It is important that we educate our community. I go out and I speak to the community about substance abuse addiction, about how that affects our community, about how that affects the families. I participate and facilitate the meetings, the staffing meetings. I do all the orders. This is a proven model that works in Tennessee. We have 12 courts. It works in Missouri. I actually went over and I speak to the other courts, the other Safe Baby Court and Treatment Courts. So it is something that is extremely important, not just for conflicts, but also for the continuity for our families. It is the best interest of these children. It is the best interest of the families. It is extremely important to keep that. And I hope that you all realize how important that is. And I'm not speaking for me personally. I'm speaking for the good of the families of Coffee County. Thank you.
Again, I am fortunate in that I didn't get to go first on this one because I genuinely agree with both Ms. Lynch and Mr. Perry. It is an important position. The magistrate, certainly it's a new program, and I understand that there have been some growing pains, but it's not a ton of money that is being moved into that, and I think we can get some real good out of it for young people and families that are in danger. So this is something that if I am elected, I would want to sit down with everybody. There's an old school of thought called management by walking around, and I believe in that. You listen to folks. You listen to the people that are doing the job instead of walking in on day one and going, I'm the judge and it's going to be this way. I believe it has to be this way because I have the authority to make it this way. That's not good management. So this is something that needs to be carefully looked at, studied. I would want to talk with all the other judges, the circuit judges, and Judge Ledsinger, and get a real understanding of the value that we're getting. But it's important. Family court, Safe Baby Court, those things are very important. Did I get done? I made it before the red card.
You get to see something tonight that you don't see very often, and that is a lot of attorneys agreeing on stuff. And that's just not our job or our nature to do that. I agree wholeheartedly with what Mr. Perry said, most specifically. It is a great program, and for years we've said, any attorney who's worked juvenile at all, we've come into court. You get scheduled, you come into court for a hearing, they get in, why hadn't you done this treatment, or why haven't you done this? Well, we hadn't had it. We couldn't figure out how to get it, and DCS just gave us a list, and we weren't able to coordinate it, or we can't get there. And then we have to have the judge lecture everybody on working together and trying to get this done. So what the Safe Baby Court, I think, a good way to sum it up, it is a consolidation of services where the court can directly help supervise and make sure treatment gets there. It is wonderful for the families that need it, although it is a very small number of families where that really qualify under it. So it's a great program. If at all possible, it should be kept going. But ultimately, like Mr. Perry said, it has to be fiscally responsible and doable, and it can't take away from other functions that are just as important.
And this will be our final question, a little bit broader question. What experience outside of the practice of law has prepared you most for this position of judge?
This is an easy one for me. I don't even need any cards or anything for this one because I think the experience that has prepared me the most is probably being a mother. And I'm going to tell you, the number of times that I have been on the bench and sat there and spoke, especially in juvenile court, and spoke to these teenagers in particular, and I can approach them and I can tell them from my experience, the structure, I said that before, children need structure. They need discipline and they need structure, and a lot of them are not getting that at home. And I have the professional side of me. I know the laws, but I can sit there and tell them, and I have been told, you just treated that boy or that girl like they were your child. And I did. And they need that. I can treat them with the respect that they deserve, but with the structure, I can give that to them. I think being a mother, being a community leader, and have that heart, but still have that strength and that power is extremely important. I set that example, and I think that's the experience that has given me. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to say that was an unexpected question. I had to think for a second. That's, a personal story. I'm the youngest of three. My oldest brother was able to drink himself to death at the ripe old age of 41. My parents, great people, loved him. He was an Olympic athlete, and he just chose to destroy his life. And they tried everything that they knew. I can't tell you, my parents put mortgages on the house to put him into rehab. And I wound up actually, finally, on his last DUI, I represented him. And so I've seen it. I've lived it for 25 years. I have dealt with folks that most people don't want to deal with. People ask me often how I could do what I do. Well, it's protecting the Constitution of the United States. It's important. Everybody deserves to have their rights protected. But for me, it was very personal watching my brother die that way. At 41, and I wanted to be able to do something to try to help others. Maybe if I caught him young enough or early enough that, and I'm going to get a red card, but I'm going to stop in a minute. If I caught him early enough that I could have helped him. If I'd have had the ability, instead of being a 12-year-old child with my 18-year-old brother and watching him just destroy himself, maybe I could have done something differently. But that's why I became a lawyer. Thank you.
As he said, this was a very unexpected kind of question to pop up. And I know Stacy has a little edge here because she gets to play the mom card, which none of us can do. But as a practical matter, my children are 4 and 6, and I know there's some carryover for that, and as they get older, I'm sure it's going to be much more so. But I've represented a lot of different people in a lot of different situations, and a 4 and a 6-year-old are a different kind of crazy than what you deal with in general. I think ultimately, and it's hard to separate on some level because I've been doing, like I said, working in an office since I was 13 off and on. And so it's hard to separate some of it, but I think largely how I was raised and my parents and what I was taught in the patience and the tolerance and understanding just how to treat people and what you need to do and what is expected of you dealing with others. And so I would say it is actually the raising from my parents that would be the most important factor outside of the practice of law.
Well, I feel like I'm one question ahead because Will's question stole my closing. I can sit up here all night and bore you with my legal history and my experience, but I've got the same license as the rest of the people behind me. We're all licensed and practiced in the state of Tennessee. I think it's a great question. My mom and dad are here tonight. I went to 8 different elementary schools when I was a child. My dad was in construction, needed to make a living. We moved to the job. I know what it's like to go to different schools. I know what it's like to be the new kid in class, like our foster kids do, that will be taken care of in this court system. I wasn't a foster kid, but I know their feelings and what they have. I've been through a divorce. Life has happened to me. I know what it's like to be a part-time parent. This court will make parenting decisions that will affect people for the rest of their lives, as well as those children. I know what it feels like for the father. I know what it feels like for the mother, and I know the effects that it has on the children. I've got experience outside the law. I was a golf professional for 12 years, customer service-based job. I've got 9 years in management at a large insurance company in Murfreesboro. Managing people, trying to understand what makes people tick. You've got 10 people, none of them motivates the same. It's your job to find out what is that motivation. I think the life experiences is what I bring to the table and then what I'm most proud of.
That was the last question. Would like to thank all of the candidates for being here. They're going to have 2 minutes for their closing statements.
Oh, well, I think one of the first things we learned is we need to question Greg's judgment, because anyone who would give up being a golf pro to do this for a living, I really have question about. And just a brief, just humor aside, any attorney who does criminal work can appreciate this. And Jess brought up recidivism earlier, and that's just the first thing that popped in my head. We've all gone through here, we've all practiced, we've all get appointed criminal cases, and there is nothing more sickening than sitting there, have your client called out, and they walk up and Judge Lidslinger's like, "Oh, it's you again. How are you doing?" That's the last thing we always want to hear. No, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I know the weather's been awful, but it's great for everybody to get out and be involved in this process. It is about experience. It is about temperament and patience and ability to work with these people. As they've said, everybody here, we all know each other. We all get along. I do a world of work with Greg. I said, my wife was asking something about, well, you know, who are you closest with at the bar? And I have 2 small kids. I don't socialize with anybody. But I said, well, you know, ironically, I said, Greg would be, of anybody in the bar, probably who I'm the closest to. So it makes it a little different. But going forward, you got to look who has the most experience in the widest range. What we had, 4,000 plus criminal cases, almost 4,000 civil cases. You have orders of protection, and which I'll get into that later. Had orders of protection, the juvenile court. It's a wide range. And you need someone who is consistently practiced in all aspects of this law. I've handled all these types of cases in any of the courts in Coffee County and around, from all the way up to the practice in the Supreme Court of Tennessee and the middle and eastern federal district courts as well. Y'all have a great night, and thank you.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's a very important election for everybody in Coffee County because this position really is the front line of our judicial system. And instead of rehashing the stuff that I've already talked about, I wanted to share something in my closing that's personal, might let you know a little bit more about who I am. I was very, very fortunate to have two loving parents, and they did the best they could and the best they knew how to raise my brothers and myself. My father was a man of great conscience. He had a deep belief in nonviolence, and during World War II, he was classified by the draft board as a conscientious objector. Now, for some folks, that was a way to avoid the draft, but my father wasn't a coward. My father enlisted, became a Navy corpsman. He served his country taking care of wounded soldiers both on the battlefield and in hospital. I remember one time as a boy, something had been broken in the house, and he looked at me and asked me if I'd done it. He knew the answer. He already knew. But I stammered and looked down at my feet, and before I spoke, he looked me in the eye and he said, "Son, there's only one thing in the world that you have that no one can ever take away from you, and that's your honor. So don't take that away from yourself, and always do the right thing." Unfortunately, my father passed when I was a fairly young man, but that discussion has stayed with me and has become a guiding principle in my life. My father swore an oath to protect and uphold the Constitution of the United States as a soldier. And I swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States as an attorney. I knew that he meant it. So do I. If elected, my guiding principle will be to do the right thing. That's what this is about, folks. It's about doing the right thing for people. Thank you for listening and for your consideration for this position. Appreciate it.
Thank you all very much for coming out tonight, and thank you again for having us. I think this was a wonderful, unique opportunity for us to get our message across. First, I just want to say I am the only one, again, I stand in front of you, that's the only one ready to step in and to serve in the role as the General Sessions Judge. I have unique experience in every aspect of the practicing in criminal court, civil court, and juvenile court. I'm also the only one who has sat on the bench and listened to and heard and made decisions in juvenile court cases. For the last year and a half, I have sat in that role. I've also sat as the presiding judge over the recovery courts and Safe Baby Court and in Family Treatment Court, which is a different role altogether. I am ready again to step in right now. I've managed a courtroom. I've been a member of the Tennessee Council of the Juvenile and Family Court Judges for the last year and a half. I've spoke with other juvenile court judges in the state of Tennessee and shared ideas with them. I failed to mention probably one of the most important things in my life, and that is that I'm married to a seventh grade math teacher, Daniel Lynch, and he and I share on a regular basis the concerns that we have for the juveniles and the children in our area. I've met with the schools. That is something that's extremely important to me, to keep that communication open. That is one of the reasons that it is so important to go forward with all of these unique programs that we have. I have two daughters, beautiful daughters, 11 and 14 years old, and they come to me on a regular basis and we talk about these unique challenges. I am invested in this community, and that is why it is extremely important. I'm a mother, I'm a professional, I'm a judge, I'm an advocate for the citizens of Coffee County, and I would appreciate your vote on March 3rd for me for General Sessions Judge, because I'm the best choice for this position. Thank you so much.
I'll tell you, this is probably the most difficult part for me, would be the closing. My mom and dad are here tonight as well, and I was raised with humility and teamwork, and speaking of myself is not my strong point. I encourage you, talk to the law enforcement officers, talk to the court clerks, talk to the attorneys in town that you know. Don't take my advice on experience. I can talk to you about it all night. I've got 13 years of experience in every array of the court system that's here, the drug court, the family treatment courts. I've got that. But please don't take that from me. Talk to people that are intimate with the situation and get their opinion. And if they say that I'm not right, I respect that opinion. I was fortunate enough to work with Judge Rollins very briefly when I began back in 2006. But one word of wisdom that he said to me as a young practicing attorney was a sign of a good attorney or a sign of a good judge is a judge who's scared to walk out of that door and get on the bench. And the reason for that is when you walk out of that door, you're going to make decisions that day that are going to affect people's lives for the rest of their lives. That's what you need in this position. I've been there. I've got the compassion. I have the empathy. I understand people. Every day that I walk through that door, if I'm fortunate enough, I'm going to be scared to walk through that door because I want to make sure I made the right decision. I'll probably take that decision home with me as I do in my practice. It's one of the toughest things about being an attorney is trying to cut off those decisions that you make and leave it at the office. But I'm ready to do that. I'm asking to do that. Thank you for the Young Republican Party for being here tonight. Thank you especially to the court clerk for staying open late tonight and our bailiffs that are staying here tonight. Thank you for coming out. Whether you vote for me or not, please go vote March 3rd. If you haven't made your mind up yet, I'd appreciate your vote.
Would like to again thank all the candidates for making themselves available tonight. This is a tough thing to do, and I really appreciate them coming out and agreeing to do this. They were all very ready to do that. I wanted to give a little bit of information. The main reason is just to get information out there. We want everybody to make an informed choice, and that's why the Young Republicans put this together. Our group is chaired by Daniel Berry, Jenna Almacher is the vice chair, Ashley Crafts is secretary, Alethea Ron is treasurer, and I am the state liaison. It's a group of 18 to 40-year-old Republicans, so we'll be happy for you guys to join or speak to us about that. We have some other elected officials and others running for Republican office if you want to talk to them tonight, and wanted to make sure we have the dates that everyone was aware. February 12th, which is next Wednesday, through the 25th is early voting, and Election Day is March 3rd. So get out and vote, and again, thank you for coming tonight.